Hey guys, Jay here, and this is my F1 fantasy team for the Brazilian Grand Prix. Let's get into it. Okay, guys, so sorry this one's late this week. I had to help family with something for a few days. Just recapping on Mexico, it actually went well for me. For Team 1, I had McLaren, Red Bull, Piastri as my times 2, Russell, Bortoleto, Sainz, Colapinto. Came away with 217 points and a 0.6 price rise. I only made one transfer, Gasly to Colapinto, which did cost me 5 points. I just felt make a transfer or don't make a transfer, and this was the only one I thought about. Did nearly bring in HAAS, but glad I didn't because of DNF. Yeah, Gasly to Colapinto, unfortunately -5, but regardless, climbed up in rank by 1,500 places. Team 2, which is my strongest team, I came away with 238 points, no price rise or price loss, and I had McLaren, Mercedes, Verstappen as my times 2. I took a punt on Leclerc, and I had Gasly, Sainz and HAAS. Again, I only made one transfer, this time Russell to Leclerc, which gave me an extra 6 points and an extra 0.2 budget rise, and a climbing rank by 1,000 places. So for Team 1 and for Team 2, I'm going into Brazil with 3 transfers, which was the plan. For Team 3, did make 2 transfers, which we'll get to in a sec, but again, very happy, 248 points with a 1.9 million price rise. I had McLaren, Red Bull, Verstappen as times 2, Oliver Bearman, which we'll get to later in the video, Antonelli, Bortoleto and Carlos Sainz. And my transfers were Norris to Bearman, Alonso to Verstappen, so I missed Alonso's DNF thankfully. 41 points with a 1.4 million budget rise. However, changing Norris to Verstappen did cost me in terms of the times 2 DRS boost, where I lost 10 points. But again, climbing rank by 5,000 places. So very happy this weekend. 3 blue arrows, trying to push Team 2 as far as I can. And I'll be very, very happy if I can get Team 1 and Team 3 into the top 10k by the end of the season. So in terms of the elite data for the Global 500, the only thing I was interested in this weekend was Final Fix, and it was just 4.8% of teams using Final Fix, because that was a big question mark over the weekend with the Final Fix Verstappen to Norris. I did take a look at the driver selection. Verstappen was the most picked driver, but also 20.8% did remove Verstappen. That said, 72.8% of teams had Verstappen as their times 2, with 22.8% making him their times 2. But what's interesting is Verstappen is at the top, and you can see Norris is at the bottom. Only 24.4% of teams had Lando Norris. 42.2% of teams had Leclerc, with 41.2% of teams bringing Leclerc in. And sadly, the big DNF losses were Sainz. 71.6% of teams had Sainz, and Alonso, where 32.2% of teams. Now, in terms of the constructors, believe it or not, 4.4% of teams did not have McLaren, but otherwise they are still the most picked team. But surprisingly, Mercedes were the second highest selected team in the Global 500, 57.2%, with Red Bull at 29% and Ferrari at 17.4%. But Ferrari came into the most teams at 15%. Unfortunately, no love for Williams, and there was no loss pretty much for Aston Martin, Alpine, HAAS and Sauber. So, early thoughts. Oliver Bearman, he is my number 1 pick going into Brazil, and I'm going to tell you why. I'm very happy with him right now. He's on very good form. He had 27 points in Netherlands, 3 points in Italy, 6 points in Azerbaijan, 6 points in Singapore, but 14 points in Kota, and a whopping 36 points this past weekend in Mexico. I was tracking Bearman in my team 3 because I was thinking of him for Brazil for all 3 of my teams, and needless to say, he was basically competing with the tier A drivers. He was doing that well. Ended up with 10 points more than Leclerc, I think. And obviously he was driver of the day, and that's boosted him a lot. Another reason I like Oliver Bearman is, as you know, he's currently leading the overtakes rankings. He's up to 99 overtakes for the season. And in terms of driver selection, he's almost owned by half of the F1 fantasy teams. He's at 42%. So he is a big pick and a popular pick. So what I then did for Oliver Bearman, I then broke down his average scores into two different categories. So we've got his season average here. You can see he's on 8.8 points for his season average. Obviously, he's had a massive boost thanks to Kota and Mexico. But regardless, you know, again, Italy 3, Azerbaijan 6, Singapore 6, and then 14 Kota, 36 Mexico. He's on great form for a B tier driver. And then here we've got the sprint weeks only, where he's on 9.3 points on average. The only negative score he had was back in Miami, -4, but he had 20 points for the Chinese Grand Prix weekend, only 7 in Belgium, but again 14 in Qatar. So I do highly recommend him for Brazil, given it's a sprint weekend, and he scored 14 points last year in Brazil. The other reason I like Bearman a lot right now is he's the top pick for a price rise in the budget builder. He's covered for a DNF. That being said, warning, we've seen this happen a lot this year. I think it just recently happened to Carlos Sainz. Is Bearman too good to be true? We've seen a few times this season that the number one B tier driver pick for a budget rise does have a bit of a DNF curse. So just something to be aware of. So we've spoken about Oliver Bearman. Now I want to look at 4 Tier A drivers. That's Norris, Piastri, Verstappen and Leclerc. For their season average, it's pretty close between Norris, Piastri and Verstappen. Leclerc is running behind, but Leclerc has got 48 points for Qatar, 29 points for Mexico. So he's on good form. In terms of sprint weeks only, Norris and Piastri lead the way, just ahead of Verstappen and then quite ahead of Leclerc. That being said, in Brazil last year, it was the other way around. Verstappen, 77 points in F1 Fantasy. In the Grand Prix, he started P17, finished P1, and Leclerc was second in F1 Fantasy with 26 points, just ahead of Norris. Piastri only came away with 16 points for the weekend. So do keep an eye, of course, on all 4 drivers. And I wouldn't rule out Russell, and I wouldn't even rule out Hamilton this weekend. So next we come to the budget builder. Now I'm just going to run through this quickly. For Tier A, your most likely for a price rise is Leclerc and Verstappen. Hamilton and Russell is very possible. Norris and Piastri, possible price loss, but only 0.1. For the Tier A constructors, it's take your pick. Everyone's pretty much on for a price rise. It's just who you want really for points. For the Tier B drivers, top picks for me is obviously Oliver Bearman. Bortoleto, I think, is a keep for me now for the season. Tsunoda did well, which kind of shafted him a bit, and he will only carry 3 points into Vegas, so I would be wary of that. But those are the 3 drivers that can score negative points this weekend. Gasly and Colapinto, it's definitely possible for a price rise, but let's face it, they're just there to hold our budget. Otherwise, Albon and Antonelli, Stroll could be a dark horse this weekend. And I wouldn't rule out Sainz points-wise, nor Hajar. And even Ocon. Ocon could be good this weekend. Bit sketchy about Lawson, Hulkenberg. I wouldn't touch, and I wouldn't touch Alonso. But in terms of budget, I would say Bearman, Bortoleto, Tsunoda, Albon, Antonelli, and possibly Stroll and Sainz, but they need to look good. And I'm only saying that because it's a sprint weekend, so there's more points up for grabs. Put a pin in that because we're going to get to the weather. For the Tier B constructors, shouldn't really be running any Tier B constructors now, but if you want to run one for a little bit of a price rise, it's HAAS and Alpine and Kick, really, that are your best bets. Or V-Carb. I mean, I just wouldn't touch Aston Martin for a price rise. So chips. Now, before I show you which chips I recommend this weekend, I've had to change my mind on this because I looked at the weather this morning. I'm recording this on Wednesday. I'll be editing today and tomorrow and try and get the video out as soon as I can. But we're in for a wet one as things stand. Friday and Saturday is going to be wet. However, Sunday should be dry. Friday is cloudy and humid. Watch for a strong morning thunderstorm followed by a couple of thundery showers in the afternoon. And then for Saturday, persistent rain before sun and areas of low clouds and less humid on the Sunday. So bearing in mind, sprint weekend, we've got 3 important sessions that are going to be in the wet and Grand Prix in the dry as things stand. I've got 2 versions. So this version of chips is if it rains, which is at the moment, which it will. I would not touch Limitless. I would hold that because I think it will be wasted with a high DNF chance. I would hold on to Wildcard. Again, you don't want a Wildcard and then end up with DNFs. Final Fix is definitely an option given the weather forecast. Same with Autopilot, just to cover your back. Ideally, Autopilot you'd want to use on a sprint, on a dry sprint weekend. But I'm also thinking this could possibly save you. No Negative is probably the most favoured chip with the current weather forecast. And extra DRS, I wouldn't risk it. If it's dry, then everything's on the table except for No Negative. So where does that leave me with my teams? Now, you'll have to forgive me. I've got some screenshots that I'm going to be looking at while I do this. For Team 1, it's looking like 3 transfers. And I'm looking at getting rid of Piastri, Russell, and Sainz. I'm looking at bringing in Verstappen, Antonelli and Bearman, and obviously I'd make Verstappen as my boost driver. Now, the reason I'm thinking of doing this is Verstappen obviously last year was just on it, 77 fantasy points. Granted, he's, unlikely. Well, I say it's unlikely. At the moment, we don't know if there's any engine penalties or anything like that, but he's definitely my top pick going into Brazil for 2 times driver. Antonelli is because I can't get to either a Leclerc or Russell, and it's just that simple, and I prefer Antonelli over Yuki Tsunoda. Again, though, I do think Yuki was unlucky in Mexico, so that's why I have Antonelli as I guess my A light, and he did do well in Mexico, got 20 points, so I'm not against it. And then Bearman, because like I say, he is my #1 pick going into Brazil this weekend, just for those overtake points more than anything, and he's just on really good form. It does mean I can't get rid of Colapinto, I can't go back to Gasly, but that's fine, and I'm happy with Bortoleto. I think Bortoleto for me is a hold for the season now, the way things are, and it means I keep McLaren and I keep Red Bull. So that's how things stand for me at the moment with Team 1. Just in case, if I was to drop Red Bull and go Mercedes, then I think I would still drop Piastri, and I would just do that. I'd probably keep Russell. I could even go Leclerc, so that would be free transfers. But like I say, for me right now, it's Piastri, Russell, Sainz out, and it's Verstappen, Antonelli, and Bearman in, with Verstappen as my 2 times driver. Okay, for Team 2, I've got plenty of options. The first one is to just make 1 transfer, and that's Hajar to Bearman. And then I take free transfers into Vegas, which would be handy because Vegas is a very low overtaking track and it's got that DNF risk being a street circuit. I could also change Leclerc to Russell if Russell looks better. I think with the form Leclerc's on, possibly would keep Leclerc again because this would only be 1 transfer, whereas this would be 2. I could bring in Antonelli, and that would allow me to change Mercedes to Red Bull. So that's an option. And if, for whatever reason, he looks really good, I could even bring in Albon, because technically speaking, Williams is a Tier A team at the moment. So Albon is an outside possibility for a team selection. And then finally, I've got Yuki Tsunoda, so I could go a triple Red Bull, and then if I wasn't to bring in Bearman, I could even do something like that. But the thing like I say, for me, Bearman right now is definitely my top pick for given it's a sprint weekend for those points. So Bearman or Antonelli, either way. Just going to refresh this quickly. And another option I've got here, which is free transfers, and it's a bit of a gamble. I go Hajar, Verstappen, and Mercedes out, and that allows me to bring in Norris, Red Bull, but I would then have to run double Alpine along with Carlos Sainz. That's the gamble there, but I don't hate it. It just means I've got no Verstappen, and I've got the 2 Alpines. The other option I've got here would be to keep Verstappen and bring in Antonelli, Bearman, and again Red Bull. That would be the free transfers. So I've got plenty of options with Team 2, which I'm very happy about, but I need to make sure I make the right decision. And then for Team 3, they've only got 2 transfers, and they've already got Oliver Bearman. So I'm actually happy with this team. signs, possible price loss maybe, but I mean, even if I was to take signs out, let's see, if I was just to make one transfer, I could go on Stroll, I could make that gamble, but otherwise it would be Lawson, Ocon, Hadjar. I just think right now I may as well just keep signs, roll and take free transfers. Well, either way, signs would be the only person I drop as things stand, and I take free transfers into Vegas. If I was to use both transfers, I don't think I can build a strong enough team. Yeah, nah. Yeah, I would need Antonelli to have any money. So yeah, team free. Right now, the plan is to either do nothing or just drop signs. So if you're here in the UK, remember it is a sprint weekend. So on the Friday, 7th of November, we've got practice 1 at 2:30, followed by sprint qualifying at 6:30. Remember, you don't have to look in your teams until after sprint qualifying. We've then got the sprint race on Saturday at 2 o'clock, 8th of November, followed by qualifying at 6 o'clock. And then the race on Sunday, the 9th of November at 5 o'clock. So as I showed you earlier about the weather, on Friday, it's going to be thundery with showers. So expect it to be wet on the Friday. Then on the Saturday, more rain for the sprint race and for qualifying. And then on the Grand Prix should be hopefully dry. In regards to last season's top 12 in F1 Fantasy, Verstappen by a mile, 77 fantasy points, followed by the two Alpines, Ocon and Gasly, picking up podiums, which is why their scores were so high. And then we've got Leclerc, Perez and Russell. And then we've got the two McLarens, Norris and Piastri, with Tsunoda in the middle. And then finally Hamilton, Bearman and Zhou. So even though Bearman is 11th here on F1 Fantasy points, again, I do still recommend Bearman for Brazil. So, in case you missed it, Liam Lawson wasn't very happy in Mexico. The FIA in hot water letting Marshals run across the track to pick up debris after Lawson got back on track. Remember, he had that spin in turn 1 and Marshals ran on to clear the debris and Lawson had to basically avoid the Marshals. So that obviously ruined his affected his race, and the FIA have been rightly criticised over the last few days. Talking of the FIA, this was last week before the Mexican Grand Prix. Sanctioned Russian Viktor Kiryanov is back in the FIA fold. Viktor Kiryanov stepped down from his role on the FIA Motorsport Council when Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022. FIA President Mohammed Ben Sulayem reinstated him for the meeting of the body on the 11th of June. Kiryanov, a former Russian Deputy Minister of Internal Affairs, is on the sanctions list of the US, UK and European Union, as well as Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Japan and Switzerland. Obviously, when Russia invaded Ukraine, certain councils like the International Olympic Committee Council were discussing rules and regulations, same as the FIA. And back then it was Ben Sulayem and David Richards, the chairman of Motorsport UK, that insisted at the time that Kiryanov stood down from his position on the World Council, which he did so voluntarily. This was a long article, so I'll try and put a link in the description if you want more information, but that's that in a nutshell. Also, this past weekend, not only did we have the Mexican Grand Prix in F1, but it was the Ferrari Challenge finale in Mugello. So for those that don't know, Ferrari Challenge has different regional competitions across the season, and then at the end of the season they all get together in Mugello for one big final race. And you can check out both the Copper Shell category and the Trofeo Pirelli category races over on the Ferrari YouTube channel. They tend to stream these races live. Again, this was last weekend, so the videos are already there if you want to go and watch a bunch of Ferrari cars racing around Mugello. When talking of the Ferrari Challenge, I decided to get a little creative at the weekend and made my very own custom livery for both the Pro and the Am category for the Trofeo Pirelli, and they are available to download and use in the Gran Turismo 7 showcase area if that's something that you're interested in. More motorsport this weekend. We've got the finale of the British Truck Racing Championship at Brands Hatch. There's racing on Saturday at 11:50, and there's racing on the Sunday at 10:25. I'm actually going to be there Sunday in person. There's a fireworks show afterwards, so I'm really looking forward to that. However, If you want to watch some truck racing, you can do so because it will be streamed live on the British Truck Racing Championship YouTube channel. Finally, in GridRivals, I had a bit of a mixed weekend. Good points, but a budget loss. Had Carlos Sainz, Lando Norris, Max Verstappen, Oscar Piastri, Colapinto and Red Bull. And my rank, I don't know if it even changed, to be honest with you. It's either gone up or down by a couple of places, but otherwise it's pretty much the same. So no change really on my rank. And that is it for this video, guys. Thank you for watching. I've got a planned video for next week if I can get it all done in time. So look out for that. Otherwise, good luck for the Brazilian Grand Prix weekend, and I'll talk to you real soon to discuss plans for the Las Vegas Grand Prix. All the best. Thanks for watching.